Hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of Media Coffee, where we interview journalists from leading media organizations around the world to answer some of your top questions on how to best communicate with the media. My name is Nariman. I'm a media relations executive here at Cision. And if this is the first time you hear about Cision, we are basically a global provider of earned media software and services for PR professionals and comms as well. If you would like to know more about us, please visit our website, drop us an email, or follow us on social media. I have the pleasure to welcome Adnkronos Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Fabio Insenga. Thank you so much for joining us today. And could I please start I have a lot of questions for you, but if we can start by, if you could introduce yourself first and tell us more about your work.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you and with our viewers. And I'm Fabio Insenga. I am 46 and I was a journalist since I was 19. So I have a huge experience in that field. And I am the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Adnkronos. I worked for Adnkronos for almost 15 years in the past. And in the last 4 years, I was the Editor-in-Chief of the Italian edition of Fortune magazine. And I came back in May at Adnkronos to develop a new format and new projects on new media.
Such a long experience. That's great. There is always a lot of conversations about press releases and if they are still important or no. So I wanted to know, what is the attitude in Italy around press releases? Are journalists still interested in receiving them?
Okay, press release is an important tool in Italy for journalists and for who works in media and in communication. I can say that it is also a bit abused tool because sometimes we have too many press releases to read. And it is really important that a press release is relevant, because it is really important that with a press release you want to communicate a news or something new or something that could interest a journalist and could be helpful for his job, and sometimes it isn't so. So the first advice I can give to a PR professional is to select what he wants to communicate and to use press release when it is really necessary to do it.
You mentioned that you receive a lot of press releases. How many press releases do you usually receive?
Hundreds per day. My mailbox is always full, and it is important because if I receive a press release from a well-known company or an institution, I immediately see the source of the press release and I open it. But if I have too many press releases to read, it is also difficult to find out the one I'm interested in. So it is important also to follow up the press release with a call or with a message. And in Italy, in the last days, we are using a lot of WhatsApp. Also for sending press releases. A lot of PR professionals arrange a chat with selected journalists, and he uses this chat to send his press releases, and it is a useful tool to use less the mail and to use more WhatsApp that you can read on your smartphone, on your PC, in every device.
That's actually wonderful, because you answered a couple of questions that I have, but I do want to unpack it a little bit. In terms, first of all, you mentioned that the source, when you receive a press release, because you have a lot, you look at the source first.
Yeah.
What else attracts your attention to a press release?
It is really important, the title, and also a short summary, because if you, as I told before, as I said before, if you have a lot of press releases to read, you can check it fastly, looking at a title or a short summary. And it is also important to add contact details. So as a journalist can call back the PR professional to go in depth in about what the PR professional is communicating with this press release.
And what is usually the length and the format of the press release? What do you suggest or recommend for clients?
Every journalist will answer to this question the shortest you can, because the work in last year has quickly changed. Newsroom, there are less journalists in newsroom. They work faster and they work harder. So also the length is important. Obviously, if you have a news to communicate, if you have an important thing to communicate, the press release could be longer. But sometimes some PR professionals are used to write too much, and it is important to select what you want to write and what is needed that is right.
The fact that you receive a lot of press releases and you have a lot to obviously scan and go through with during the day, I was wondering, how do you verify the accuracy of the press releases or the information that you receive?
Yes, if it comes from a big company or an institution or a political party or a trade union, you can see the source, you can see the logo on the press release, and you can bet, you can hope that it is the accuracy is guaranteed by that. If you received a press release from a smaller company or from someone who you don't know yet, you have to verify it. You have to call. You have to do an internet research. You have to ask yourself several questions about what is written in the press release and what that press release means.
And when it comes to the different components that you would like to receive for the press release, what are they? What do you prefer?
Yeah, if you speak about format, it is important to have a format that I can copy and paste, because it is really useful, and let the journalists go faster. If I want to tell you a short story about press release, because it is important. When I started working at Adnkronos, I was really young, and an old journalist came to me with a paper in his hands. It was a press release, and it told me, you can take it and you can copy it and you can bet it is all true. Or you have another way. You can ask yourself 3 or 4 questions about what is written in the press release, and you can be sure that you can find 3 or 4 news in a press release. And I think that it is really true, and it was true 20 or 25 years ago, and it is true now in a landscape, in a media landscape that quickly evolves in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the story. It's always useful, obviously, to listen to journalist stories, because that's how we can kind of like reach, I think, the middle ground when it comes to PR professionals and journalists as well. So everyone is happy. So my next question is, I was actually interested to know, have you noticed any change in the volume of press releases before and after COVID, or actually now versus before COVID?
Yeah, I think that the number increased during COVID. Maybe because a lot of people worked from their homes, and smart working added the chance to send press release and to speak with journalists during all the day. And in my experience, the number increased in last 2 years.
That's actually interesting to know that it increased. I don't know, for some reason I thought it's going to either decrease or stay the same.
No, maybe around COVID, a lot of companies, a lot of institutions wanted to communicate what they are doing, what they were doing to save their people, or to aid population. So we received a lot of press releases linked with the COVID emergency.
I usually leave these questions to the end, but I wanted to ask you about it now because you did mention different ways that journalists can communicate with companies or PR professionals, etc. So you've mentioned that it's completely fine for companies or PR professionals to communicate or contact journalists via WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Is that a common practice in Italy?
Yeah, really common. And we have a lot of chats on our smartphone, and we can quickly communicate with the PR professionals or spokesperson. And it is a faster way to communicate, also without a press release, also just with a short message or with 2 or 3 lines that can introduce an argument, or that can announce that after a PR professional or spokesperson will send you an important press release. It is a way also to avoid to use too much the phone, less phone calls and more messages by WhatsApp. This is the trend.
Okay, that's actually interesting to know. I've actually spoken to a couple of people from different countries like Spain and someone from Bahrain as well, and they did mention that they as well use WhatsApp to communicate with journalists. In terms of writing the press releases itself, this is one of the top questions that we usually receive. What would you, or what should the author think about while they're writing a press release?
Okay, I have to give some advices to first of all, you have to be focused on the news you want to communicate, and you have to start from your news, because a common mistake that PR professionals makes is to hide the news inside a boring text. And it is the worst mistake you can do. You have to start from the news, and you have to add later details about the news. But I have to. I said before that we have less time to read everything, and in particular press releases. So I have to have a good title, the news on the top of the press release, and so I can go on with details. And as all of us, we are working with a multimedia approach. It is also important to add photo, videos, and all details you can add to a text news. And the last advice, but this is an important advice, is to select your target and to write thinking about who you want to reach. Okay, so if you want to reach a really technical audience, you can use a language. But if your news, your press release needs to be spread in a larger audience, you have to use a simple language, and you have to be as clear as you can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's great to know. Thank you so much for the advice. I wanted just to follow up with you because you mentioned one of the mistakes that companies make is bury their news inside the press release.
Yeah.
What are other mistakes that you've noticed companies does when they communicate with you?
Yes, first of all, some companies communicate too much, because you have to select what you want to put in a press release, but you have to be able to understand that you can communicate something and you can't communicate something else. Because many journalists receives a lot of press releases that are completely useless for their job, and it is also a matter of culture inside the company. Because the media team has to explain inside the company that it is useful to communicate something, and it is unuseful to communicate something else. It is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of communicating in Italy in general, what would you advise companies to think about if they want to communicate with audience in Italy? Whether it was from like a cultural perspective or from media perspective, any advice? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it is important to build a good relationships between PR professionals and journalists, because if you are able to reach a fair relationship, you can help together, you can help each other to improve the level both of journalism and of communication. I'm really convinced that a good journalism is helped by a good communication, and vice versa, because if PR professionals want only to push their press release, their information, without understanding the needs of a journalist, they make a mistake. It is really important to improve the knowledge of each other. If a PR professional understands how a newsroom works every day, can do a better job without any doubt.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And an important question again, when is the best time to send a press release?
It depends. It depends, and it's again a matter of relevance. If you have a really relevant press release, you can send it whenever you want, here in the morning, later, and you will find an answer. If you have to communicate something that it is not so relevant or not so urgent, you have to choose the right portion of the day. And if you have to send a press release about a research or an analysis or something that it isn't a breaking news, it is better that you send it in the less busy hours of the day. So that could be a good advice.
So are there any days or time that they should avoid, like completely avoid?
Yeah, it depends. If you are a PR professional and you need to reach a specific journalist or a specific sector in a newsroom, you have to avoid days like Sunday or holidays when there are less journalists in a newsroom, and maybe you can find the journalists who you are looking for. On the other side, if you have something that could interest when there is a lack of information, it could be useful to send your press release also on Sunday or in a period which is less busy, speaking of news or information in general.
Sorry, do you usually read press releases during the weekend or public holidays?
Yeah, yeah, it happens, and obviously, if I'm on vacation or during the weekend, I scan quickly my mailbox and only to check if there is something really important to send to my newsroom. But nowadays, in almost all newsrooms, there is a journalist working every day, every time, 24 hours a day. So if I see something interesting in my mailbox, I can always follow it to my newsroom.
Great. So my last question to you: do you have any final recommendation for PR professionals and comms professionals as well?
Yeah. As I said before, the most important advice is to collaborate, to build a fair relationship between PR professionals and journalists. I always say that because if you are polite, if you are ready to answer about our questions, you can obtain more from journalists, and you can send your press release, do a quick follow-up, and find answers in a newsroom more easily if you are polite and if you are professional.